Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us here today, along with Eric Hansen from Blue and Gold, Sean Stires. It is a Friday, and that means our weekly visit from Mr. Hansen. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, and I was curious, did you put together that music for the countdown?
I did. Okay. The countdown. No, the countdown I did. The on-air I did, not the countdown.
Okay.
That was not my invention. No.
Okay, cool.
It's a little hypnotic listening to it over and over and over again. The first day that we did the show, the dual video and radio, we were playing that during the commercial breaks, and people got tired of it very quickly, and that's when we went to just the photo image on the screen with no sound during the commercial break. So I think people were a lot more excited after that. So
sounds good.
Well, we've got 23 days until the good old season opener at Miami. We're getting a little bit closer. The Irish are a little bit more than a week into training camp right now. We've got some audio from Joe Rudolph, Notre Dame's offensive line coach, that we're going to play and discuss. A lot of good stuff, I thought, from Joe Rudolph when we got to talk to him. Al Washington, too, for that matter, both line coaches this week. A lot of great stuff came out of that. Eric, we obviously don't know who the starting quarterback is right now, and I feel like, I don't know if it's like this in your world as well, people are getting a little antsy, it feels like. I'm not surprised they haven't named a starter yet. What do you think? I think Eric might be. I think you're muted. You're definitely muted, and I can't unmute you.
All right.
There we go.
So
rewind and say it again. Go from the top.
Well, I said something really profound. I don't know if
Of course.
So I think they're going to be antsy even after they announce the quarterback. There will be the debate about whether they made the right choice. But I did not expect one this early. I thought the sweet spot was kind of between the 10th, which we're getting close to, and the 17th, which is the next time Marcus Freeman speaks or is scheduled to speak with us. They can always change the schedule.
True.
And I thought that would probably be when we find out who the quarterback is at that point. So for me, the timeline, and then if it goes beyond that, they may not know and just not want to say, but I think Marcus is just going to say it. I don't think he's going to play that game.
Yeah. He doesn't tend to play the Jim Harbaugh type.
Nah.
Hiding the depth charts, and he's an open book. He's up front with just about everything, and it feels like that. I kind of think so. Just exactly what you're saying. Either we get some sort of social media announcement maybe before we get to talk to Marcus Freeman, or we just walk into the press conference the day we get to talk to Marcus Freeman, and maybe he just leads with that, and then maybe we'll be stunned. Maybe, maybe we won't be, but either way, we find out that way. That's kind of what it feels like. But I agree with what you're saying, like, especially depending on who it ends up being. There might be some good back and forth on just who ends up being the starting quarterback.
Well, I think there's a lot of momentum in the fan base suddenly for Kenny Minchey. I think we in the media felt like, going into this training camp, that CJ Carr was the heavy favorite. Whether that was true or not, that's kind of been the prevailing feeling. And I do think if you listen to the people that have been watching practice that aren't attached to the team, they would say, wow, it feels closer than we thought it was going to be. And so I do think it's a real quarterback competition now. So Kenny Minchey has people in his camp. And again, we're basing it, a lot of people that aren't at practice are basing it on 4 reps for game reps for each of them against the 18th place Big Ten team last year. And so
True.
It's not like if, Marcus names the quarterback, they have a lot of film to pour over in terms of preparation and so forth. But I think it would be to Miami's advantage to know. But again, they don't have a lot of film to pour over those guys. But I think there has been a growing why not Kenny Minchey kind of factor.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this, and I'm not I'll just preface it with this. I'm not talking about like a package for this guy or a package for that guy. But again, I think because everything that we're saying and everything that we're hearing says this is a very close competition that's going on right now between these two guys. And with that in mind, some of the questions that we're also getting are, could they play two guys?
Mm-hmm.
I would be very opposed to that. I think most people would be opposed to that. Could you see a world where that, and again, I'm not just talking about a package here, a package, like I guess something similar to, Kaiser Zaire going into 2016. Do you see a world where that could happen?
I do not like that scenario, and I don't think Marcus does, and I'm not sure that Mike Denbrock does either. I mean, Brian Kelly has done that before. He's done both things we've seen. He's changed quarterbacks. He's tried to play two, and he's also done the change-up model. He's done all three of those things. So you think about 2011, Dane Christ was the starter, and then there was a lightning delay and a loss to South Florida, and Tommy Reese became the number one guy. You think about the whole fiasco in 2016 with Kaiser and Zaire, and Texas was really happy that Zaire was playing. They didn't want to see Kaiser the whole game. And then you had the change-ups in 2011. Andrew Hendricks was introduced as kind of the running quarterback, kind of midway through the year, and maybe another couple of games, and it never really took off. The one year that it did take off was 2021, where you had Jack Cohn and Tyler Buckner. And Tyler Buckner was a real true change-up quarterback. None of these decisions were Mike Denbrock's. I mean, Mike Denbrock was overruled on the quarterbacks in 2016. He wasn't the offensive coordinator or the play caller early in the Brian Kelly era. He was in Cincinnati in 2021. So he wasn't really involved in any of that stuff. I don't think he wants to play two quarterbacks as equals, but I do think what you said about a package quarterback might make sense. I think it's something that they should explore and then say, okay, this isn't working, or yeah, this might work for us.
I agree. I do see room for a package type situation. The back and forth or quick hooks and those kind of things like you were talking about. I think it just, especially when you have two unproven guys, and no matter who ends up being the starter, there are going to be different camps within the team in terms of who is behind which guy, whether that's, public or they're vocal about it or not. That's just natural. That's, that's going to happen. And I think that you just ultimately set yourself up for a big catastrophe if you go into a season and you're indecisive like that, and all of a sudden you're going back and forth in a couple of different guys. I was so profound with my answer that I choked Eric up. I
was getting a little verklempt.
Right. All right. Well, we will move on from that. By the way, first AP poll comes out next week. I thought about this after I sent you some of the rundown for the show today. Are you still an AP voter, or because you're on the digital space now, is that kind of a thing of the past since your Tribune days?
I've been doing the college sports thing for 43 years, and I've been an AP voter more than I have not. The 2 years right after it was 2 seasons right after I left the Tribune, I was not. And then last year they said, you know what? We're going to do something different. You're in the digital space. This is the way sports journalism is going. We want you back. And they invited me back on. And so this will be my second year in a row kind of in this stretch. So I am an AP voter. I had to turn in my ballot by August 1st, and it comes out on Monday at noon Eastern time.
we will all see it. So you've already got that ballot turned in. We're all waiting to see what the AP poll looks like. I wonder if it'll be. You don't have to give away like where you put everybody, but
okay.
I mean, you can if you want to.
Okay.
Is your top 5 or top 10? Is it markedly different from the coaches poll that came out earlier this week?
I don't think it's markedly different. I'll tell you what my top 5 is. I had Texas number 1, Penn State 2, Ohio State 3, Notre Dame 4, and Georgia 5. So I think it's similar teams, but maybe in a shuffled order. But again, I made my ballot before the coaches poll came out. I think a lot of the ballots are going to be kind of similar at the top. It gets harder to rate the teams from like 16 through 25 than it is for the top 5 or 10 to me.
I agree. A lot of Notre Dame fans mad that the Irish are ranked behind Penn State after that coaches poll this week. There's just a lot of experience, a lot of good talent on that team. And to me, they played an equal game, obviously, toward the end of last season that came down to a couple plays at the end. And Notre Dame still has to answer the biggest question on the field, which we just talked about, the quarterback.
Right.
Penn State has the answer to that right now, and a guy who could be a first-round draft pick in Drew Aller.
Yeah, and again, the way that I look at the poll and voting in the poll, I look at the first poll as predictive. This is how I think these teams are going to line up on Selection Sunday. Not necessarily what they will after the national championship, but on Selection Sunday, this is where they'll be. Then you get into start playing games and you get information every week. And I'm completely open to changing my opinions about teams just because Penn State is ahead of Notre Dame. After they've played a couple games, I may say, you know what, Notre Dame looks better than them. So, you're not stuck behind a team that was ahead of you in the preseason poll. Maybe 30 years ago, a lot of people did that. We get instructions and guidelines, and that's one of the things they said, don't be a slave to your preseason rankings. Don't stick with that.
Don't get hard-headed and think that
don't get hard-headed and don't take bribes.
Yeah, more importantly, don't take the bribes. All right, the AP poll comes out Monday, so we'll see how close that looks at top 5 to what Eric had right there. Let's talk a little offensive line. Again, we got to talk to Joe Rudolph, Notre Dame offensive line coach this week, and hit on a lot of different topics. Eric got to lob a lot of questions about a lot of different topics at him, a lot of good stuff and a lot of great insights that we got. We're going to start with this. Will Black. He is a guy we talked about, I guess it was last week when we found out that Will Black was playing some guard after we got to see a practice or two. He was playing guard and not playing tackle. So Eric asked Joe Rudolph, why start Will Black off working at guard in training camp?
I think the only reason to start him out working at guard is because I thought that might be a spot where we could need him. And so I wanted him, and he was really comfortable at tackle. So rather than like move him back and forth, I just put him at his uncomfortable spot. And I said, let me see if this kid can kind of grow into this year. Never minded me to start like a guy that I thought would be a really good tackle at guard and then move him back out there, because I think early on, sometimes the less space, sometimes just gets you confident to just play. I think like for him, sometimes the physicality inside for a guy that plays tackle to go to guard, you find out pretty early whether it's in him to do that. It's in him to do that. He's done a really good job through this period of time. Matty Augustine's done a good job doing that. Both of those guys are playing at a high level and have the ability to grasp multiple positions, which is kind of shocking for young players.
So there's Joe Rudolph, the Notre Dame offensive line coach, on why Will Black at guard. What'd you think of the explanation, Eric?
I liked it, and it was more than I had reasoned out in my mind, and he really expanded on it. I think, the rumblings I had heard this summer from some pretty good sources were that Will Black was pretty special. He came in with really good strength, really good body movement, and they were pretty optimistic he would be a factor early. And the fact that they've now given him 2 avenues to get into the 2 deeps, I think that's significant, that he can do that at either guard or tackle. Some guys can't. Some tackles can't get that bend and can't play inside. Tosh Baker was one of them. Some people would argue that he wasn't that good of a tackle either, but he definitely couldn't move inside and play guard. And so I think you think about some of the people that he's jumping over, Will Black, like Peter Jones, for example, to get in that position that he's probably going to be in the 2 deeps. And whether it's guard or tackle, again, Rudolph's thinking is get my 5 best on the field. And if there's injuries, where does Will Black stand? I mean, my sense is right now with Jagaza sidelined that he's probably no lower than 7th. I would think Guerby Lambert is number 6 and Will Black is number 7 in terms of guys they trust.
Yeah, and it just feels like with what they have at those 2 tackles right now, there could be a faster path for Will Black to get on the field with all those things that you because of who could be here, who might be leaving in the near future and those
Right.
kind of things. And you obviously have a lot of other talent. Like that's the one thing. It is a very deep, talent rich position group, and you've got to find spots for them. Because like you have Styles Prescott, and a year ago probably, there's some people. Well, what about Styles Prescott? And then Guerby Lambert, and he keeps working his way back from the injury, and we'll get some more on him here in just a minute. So, a follow-up question on the guards. They had a lot of guys who obviously played guard last year, then tackle because of necessity, because of the injuries to the interior. So the question was, are there other guys who might be showing themselves, like if something happens, they could be the next in and going at guard?
Will has done really good things there. Sully obviously played tackle and guard, has stepped up and done great things there. Chris has always been there. Chris is also playing center and has showed the ability to be a really good center, but he's done a really good job at right guard position. So, Maddie's done tackle and guard already, so it's kind of fun that way,
So a handful of names there. Guerby Lambert was the first name that he mentioned, and I feel like that makes some sense. But at the same time, there's probably a good faction of people who would rather hear Guerby Lambert's name being mentioned at tackle. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they'd like to see him at tackle. And again, the calculus then becomes, let's say you had another injury and it was at one of the guard spots. I do think that there's some value in, and I think Joe Rudolph more importantly thinks this, that, okay, if there was an injury there, does moving Anthonie Knapp inside make more sense and have Guerby Lambert be the left tackle, or are you better off just plugging Guerby into the spot where there was an injury? And so I think that's a conversation that they would have, and they like to see what those reps look like, because Guerby may be a far better tackle than he is a guard, or it may be pretty similar. Like Charles Jagaza, he was really good at both. He was really good at a left tackle. He was really good at a right guard. And those aren't always, I mean, even going left to right sometimes is a big adjustment for people. I remember talking to Aaron Taylor about it, and he got shifted to a different side of the line, and he was playing with the opposite hand on the ground because he just couldn't grasp having to move sides. And so, yeah, there's some people where it's guard tackle is not a big transition, right left isn't. Guerby Lambert it might be, or Anthonie Knapp it might be. So they have to measure all those things. But you want your best 5. And Joe Rudolph is confident he can coach him up. When he mentioned Chris, for people that don't remember all the last names, it's Chris Tarrick he was talking about.
There you go. I mean, when I listen to him, it all makes a lot of sense, and that's why I appreciate the fact that he explains things the way that he does, and he goes into his thought process, and he doesn't just kind of try to deflect and hide behind some of this. I mean, he explains it, and I think that it's good for people to be able to hear that. They still might not necessarily agree with it, but I think at least you get the thought process that's going behind all this.
Yeah, and he is similar to Harry in terms of, okay, give me my best 5 and I'll retrofit them to a position. And
Yeah.
even if they've never played that position before. And Harry, I mean, you talk about Nick Martin had never played center before and ends up being a second-round draft choice at center. So, I mean, if you're a really good offensive line coach and you know how to fit people, you can make those decisions work. Now, sometimes there's a guy that doesn't have the length or the athleticism to play on the outside. So sometimes being a natural inside guy going outside isn't. But usually if you're a tackle, he can find a spot for you anywhere on the line.
And that's, again, like that, going back to Harry Hiestand, he predominantly recruited as many tackles as he could. Right. And then, based on their body types and their skill sets and things, they would plug, most, like you just mentioned, they would plug inside and play either guard or center. And I think that that's a really good way to look at it. So like you might not be totally excited about Will Black moving inside right now, but maybe he ends up being, it's hard to say anyone's going to be the next Quentin Nelson, but at the same time, like there's always that chance.
I mean, coming out of high school, I mean, he has similar pedigree. I mean, Notre Dame hasn't had a lot of 5-star offensive linemen. They have had Sam Young and Quentin Nelson. These are rivals that I'm quoting, and Will Black. And so, he's a 5-star talent. So to say that he could have a similar career isn't ridiculous. I do think, Charles Jaguzza was a 4-star guy, and Tom Lemming told me when he was a senior that he thought at that point Jaguzza was ahead of where McGlinchey and Quentin Nelson were at that point of his career. Now he's played in 3 games in 2 years and played great in them, but he's been injured so much. It'll be interesting to see how his trajectory goes.
And I like going back to what he was talking about with Will Black. This is a freshman. What he's comfortable doing. He's comfortable playing tackle because that's what he's done. See what happens when you make him a little bit uncomfortable at that guard position and how he responds to that. I think that there's something to be said for that as well. And again, that could be, at least for the short term, a solution for both Will Black and for the team. It's a long season, as we found out last year, and
he already's gone from 3rd team to 2nd team in a very short period of time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, you mentioned Guerby Lambert and Anthonie Knapp on the outside / potentially the inside. We will play Joe Rudolph's comments on that after we take a break, along with Eric Hansen from Blue and Gold. Is it Blue and Gold Illustrated? Is that the official? I want to make sure.
I will say blueandgold.com because that's where you find us. Blueandgold.com. That's where you go.
You just go to the website, blueandgold.com. It is much easier to say it that way. Sounds good to me. We will get some more Joe Rudolph, including those Guerby Lambert, Anthonie Knapp comments coming up next. Rolling on through the 5 o'clock hour. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Sean Stires along with Eric Hansen from blueandgold.com. Before I forget, Eric, and get pinched for time potentially at the end of the hour when we're winding down, do you guys have a special going on right now?
We do. And it only costs $1, which you can, if you still use actual money, you might be able to find it in the cushions of your couch. But a week of blueandgold.com for $1, just take a test drive. If you like us, you can re-up with us after that week.
All right. Sounds good. Blueandgold.com. And Ant VR says, Eric Hansen on the show. How? How did it happen?
It's the magic of StreamYard.
That's right. Literally. Irish English says the new studio looks great. Thank you very much, sir. Glad to have you with us. Haven't seen
not good enough for me to go drive 10 minutes to get down.
Yes, you'd have to sit with a window at your back anyway. So, all right, we've been talking some Notre Dame offensive line. Eric asked another interesting question regarding that he's kind of referenced a little bit regarding Guerby Lambert. What if he's one of the best 5 offensive linemen? Do you then bump Anthonie Knapp inside at that point? Here's Joe Rudolph's response.
I just think you start working guys at multiple spots and you try to help them to kind of develop. I think Guerby's an outstanding player. Like, he'll be able to compete. For him not to be able to compete at guard and tackle would be silly. So he's doing that.
All right. So there you go. That ended. Sorry. Double click there. That ended a little bit quicker than I thought. He didn't necessarily answer the Anthonie Knapp part of it. What did you think of that?
Well, I know they're really high on Anthonie Knapp. They feel like at tackle, he's got the strength and he's got the experience of starting 15 games last year. And he's just such a quick learner. I think last year when you saw games where he wasn't, got a Pro Football Focus film grade that was less than flattering, it was more because he was an 18-year-old who hadn't yet grown into his college body, and he kind of has that college body now. And so I think that puts him on pretty good footing. But, I mean, there's still a chance, again, is Guerby Lambert at 6'7" and 320 or 330 a better option there than a guy that's 6'4" and barely 300. And so that's something to consider. And with long arms too. I mean, he's got more length than Anthonie does. Yeah,
exactly. And obviously it's
more than I do as I stretch my arms out.
That big Eric Hansen wingspan there. No, and I completely agree. And that kind of, I actually just had the cut ready to go, and then I knocked it out. So that kind of leads us into this, because the last 2 training camps, there have been some camp surprises, including last year. And so you asked the question of Joe, with Sullivan Absher plugging into that right guard spot of Charles Jagasaw, are you set now? Is he set with the starting 5? Is Joe Rudolph set with the starting 5? Or is there competition that we could see some change to that over these last, 3 weeks or couple weeks of camp, and then segueing into game prep? And here's Joe Rudolph on that.
The surprises, I guess there were less surprises for us. You know what I mean? And that's usually always the way it is, right? Guys see who's playing well, and guys see who's playing at a really high level and who deserve opportunities at times. And they also realize that it's ongoing, right? We finished the year with a different group than we started with, because that was the group we needed at that time to be the best us. And that's just our responsibility as the O-line room, not just mine. We got to put the group out there that's going to be the best group for that football team. And the competition is real at every spot, and we're going to compete our butts off to get there, and we'll do the same thing this year.
Reiterating the top 5, looking for the best 5 as you would expect. Who or what would qualify as a surprise at this point?
To me, the guy that's a surprise that he's in the top 9 right now is Matty Augustine. I did not see that one coming. I know in the spring he was getting some 2 reps, but not everybody was healthy enough to take reps in the spring. Matty Augustine being in that conversation in the next level is the surprise to me. Now, who could come out of that? To me right now, there's 9 guys they trust. The 5 guys that are in the starting lineup right now, that includes Sullivan Absher, and then the 2 freshmen, Black and Augustine, Chris Tarek, and Guerby Lambert. To me, a surprise would be Tarek or Augustine moving into the top 5. Less surprising if Will Black or Guerby did, but to knock any of them out at this point would seem to be a bit of a surprise, given the fact that how much continuity they had in the spring. And, the only person that really seems like they'd be vulnerable to being bumped is Sullivan Absher. I can't imagine one of the other 4 could be bumped. But, I mean, we were shocked last year. I was shocked last year when both Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler were knocked out by Sam Pendleton.
I know. And we just showed up one day and there was Sam Pendleton.
Right.
There, and that's
it wasn't just Anthonie Knapp, it was Pendleton too. And then later in the year, Pendleton couldn't get that spot back. Shrouth gets hurt, Rocco starts playing, and then Pendleton couldn't pass Rocco up, and then now both of them are playing somewhere else.
Yeah, and I agree. It feels like, I think the biggest shock would be Augustine or Tarek at this point, especially with the Sullivan Absher, because he had such a great spring, and he did played both guard and center and looked really good in the process. But obviously, like, when my antennas definitely went up when I heard him say Augustine's name a couple of times when we were over there the other day, and then obviously we've heard him say it in these clips. But he seems like, of anybody right now, he seems like he might kind of fit that bill if that were to happen. And we're only a little bit more than a week into camp at this point, so a lot could potentially happen between now and next week when they're through almost 2.5 weeks.
Absher was actually in that mix last year when Knapp and Pendleton took over the left side. Absher was getting looks at both of those spots and ended up not being the guy. But when you look at his PFF film grades from limited snaps, less than 100 snaps, he was the top rated lineman on the team. Now, again, not high leverage situations. He was right around where Aamil Wagner ranked. But for, limited non-high pressure snaps, I mean, he did a really good job of executing his job.
If you had to stake a pizza of your choice on it, do you think the 5 or the 5 that we've seen right now, or do you think that somebody kind of slips their way in there before it's all said and done?
On staking a pizza of my choice, I would say these 5 open the season. If I had to stake a pizza that I didn't particularly care for, I might take a run at Guerby Lambert making that starting 5. But I do think that Sullivan Absher is going to end up being able to hold on, barring injury.
That's how I feel as well. But to the point that I've seen a couple different people make, including Double R, the depth is legit. That's the good news in all this.
Bob Morton was subbed in for Tyler James on our YouTube show, Football Never Sleeps, on Monday nights. And he's a former Notre Dame offensive lineman. Now, before Jagaza got hurt, he said 10 deep, this is the best group that he's ever seen at Notre Dame.
Wow.
Not necessarily the best starting 5, but the best 10, he thought. And that's with Jagaza, a healthy Jagaza included. He still feels like but that's pretty high praise from a guy that when he watches a game, he's watching the offensive line. He's not watching the ball like the rest of us do.
Exactly. Exactly. That is. And I think, I mean, there's a lot of position groups I think that you could make that case for, but offensive line as well. And that's, again, I know Joe Rudolph kind of feels some of the fan wrath, but the job he has done recruiting and developing those guys once they get here in the relatively short amount of time that he's been here. I think that he's sort of proven himself at this point, I think, already.
I do think so too. There was a lot of discussion about, there was a time where Rudolph was looked in that, Harry was always the king, but Rudolph was in that next group. And then when he took the job at Virginia Tech and then came to Notre Dame, there were a lot of people kind of questioning, well, and it's hard to follow Harry. I think one thing that was smart was he bought into the Harry Hiestand, Joe Moore lineage, and that was easy for him to do. He's a Pennsylvania guy like them. Harry tried to recruit him to Cincinnati when Harry was an assistant there a million years ago. Joe Moore used to go to Wisconsin's practice when Joe was a player and heckle him at his O-line coach Kavanaugh's suggestion, and actually give him really good tips after practice. So,
and I mean, there's still some saltiness from that offensive line coach out there. We saw some of that on just, like Harry Hiestand, I think, had the reputation of being, the saltiest one out there when we were watching practices. But Joe Rudolph was getting on some guys the other day when we were out there as well. It didn't quite have the same rasp as Harry Hiestand, but it had its own kind of unique rasp, and he was getting on some guys.
Some of the vocabulary is very similar.
Yes.
Harry definitely has higher decibels. You would hear Harry over everybody at the practices now. Wouldn't you say Denbrock is the loudest voice that you hear?
Yeah,
but
that's true.
But Joe Rudolph, I mean, if you get close enough, you're like, whoa, okay, this isn't family friendly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like Joe Rudolph. Yeah, that's right. Joe Rudolph, he's not going to be the loudest guy, but just what you said right there. He will slip some stuff in there a little bit, some verbiage every now and then. You teed me up for the next one, the Joe Moore stuff that you asked about. And so I think what we'll do, so I don't get behind, we'll take this last break of the hour, and then we'll come back and hear some of what Joe Rudolph said about those Joe Moore philosophies. And I think he slips maybe even a little Harry Hiestand in there as well. Yeah. And if he thinks this offensive line is up for that Joe Moore award, like if they can play to that kind of level. Of course, the Joe Moore award goes to the best offensive line in the nation in college football. We'll do that when we return to wrap up the first hour of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. About 10 minutes to go in this first hour of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Sean Stires, Eric Hansen from BlueandGold.com. We've been talking a lot of offensive line with comments from line coach Joe Rudolph in this first hour. A couple questions that have popped in. Eric, you gave your top 5 that you have already turned in on your AP ballot. And Joe wants to know, I think a lot of people were thinking this when the coaches poll came out as well. Why Texas number 1? Is it because of Manning? Joe says he's just as unproven as other first-year starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't dock teams for having first-year starting quarterbacks. Since 2009, there have been 16 national champions, and more than half of them have had first-year starting quarterbacks. So talent to me trumps experience, and in every of the other national championships they've been second-year starters. Will Howard was weird because he had a few starts in some other years, but in terms of starting all season, he was a second-year starting quarterback. So not a lot of quarterback experience. If you're really that good, you're usually going to the NFL after your junior year. No, to me, I look at some things in terms of key metrics: run defense, run offense, total defense, turnover margin, and pass efficiency. Now, again, you have a different quarterback than they had last year, but Texas, to me, checked most of the boxes. They had the fewest questions to me, but there was very little difference to me between 1 and 4. And again, I could have just as easily put Notre Dame number 1, and I would have been able to defend it. I could have put Penn State or Ohio State. Those 4, to me, are kind of in a bucket by themselves, and then Georgia's a little bit into the next tier. But again, one of the things that you have to do when you're an AP voter, you got to have some thick skin, because people are going to come at you. They're going to say, well, why didn't you rank Notre Dame higher if they're Notre Dame fans? And they're like, why you have Notre Dame that high? Because you're big homer, so you get both of it. The Iowa State fans were killing me. They wanted to take away my vote last year because I had Notre Dame higher than Iowa State. So,
oh my goodness, Iowa State! Like I can't imagine getting flack from Iowa State fans.
Well, you get flack is different. Like the people in the SEC used to say, your mom drives a beer truck, and then
right.
The guy from Wake Forest one year where they were pretty good sent me a spreadsheet. So the criticism comes in different forms.
Oh boy,
you just have to be able to live with it.
Yeah. All right, let's get 1 or 2 more comments from Joe Rudolph in before we wrap up this first hour. We were talking about the Joe Moore stuff, and Eric talked to Rudolph in Atlanta before the national championship game at the end of last season, and he talked about Joe Moore philosophies and how they pertain to Notre Dame's offensive line. And so Eric asked him the other day if that still comes into play at this time of year with these guys.
We do. We put I think about 3 videos of Coach Moore, a video of Coach Eastant, and we talk about like just like what those things mean, how they apply, not just to football, but in life, and then how they apply to football in different areas of football. But yeah, we always start that off. We put, you got an award named after an O-line coach that coached here. Like we talk about the O-line creed from the Joe Moore Award, and we talk about like if you want that to be your identity, to be the best in the country, in the end, someone will win the award. More important that we say that's our identity that we want, and then our decisions and our behaviors after that reflect the identity that we chose, and that's what it's all about for us. So we love starting everything off with that.
I mean, if you're Joe Rudolph, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about. Like, you've already got you're following in the footsteps of Harry Hiestand, who is regarded in recent Notre Dame history and as the standard bearer, and then you've also got the guy who coached here, Joe Moore, who the best off the award for the best offensive line in the country is named after.
Yeah, and I think it's really smart. And at the beginning of that clip, he was saying that was the first meeting they showed those clips and so forth. And if you wonder what the creed is for the Joe Moore Award, it's I am because of us. It really embraces the cohesiveness of the offensive line, the togetherness of it. 5 5 guys looking through the same lens and so forth. But I think it's really smart because, I mean, the principles that Joe and that Harry taught have not gone out of style.
Yeah.
And when you look at all the offensive linemen that are in the NFL, that are in Hall of Fames and Halls of Fame, you think about those guys, and that's a great standard for the current group to look up to and say, I want to be like that. I'm going to stay after practice. The offensive linemen are always the last position group to leave practice.
Yeah. When we were waiting.
Which is great for interviews.
Exactly. We're waiting after practice and we're like, oh, O-line, D-line. Okay, we're going to be here for a while
Right.
before anything happens here. So final cut that we'll play from Joe Rudolph in terms of if he believes that this year's Notre Dame offensive line can win that Joe Moore Award, like if they believe that they can be that kind of unit this year.
I just think I think they believe that, and I thought the last 3 groups believe that, and it's a battle. It's not always going to be the same 5 out there. You wish it is, but it's going to be guys stepping in, and can the next guy be just what we need him to be, And last year, so many games, you were able to do that, and I think that group took a lot of pride in reaching their full potential, as Coach Freeman says, and that's in the end, that's the fight.
I'll just ask you this, Eric. We've been out there a few times. We've obviously seen a lot of these guys play in games last year. We've seen them on the practice field so far this year. Do you think that this year's Notre Dame offensive line could be the best since the 2017 line that included McGlinchey and Quentin Nelson?
I think had Jagaza not gotten hurt, I would absolutely say it. With Sullivan Absher in that spot, I think they still have a chance to be that, a very good chance to be that. But with Jagaza, I would have, whatever the steaks were, the best pizza that I've ever had or whatever, I would have bet that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And the upside is there's still a pretty good chance that at some point this season they get Jagaza back. And
who's shown to be able to play in huge games with very little practice.
Yeah. Just come right off the sideline and just jump right in and do it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, he would have had a chance to be, he would have been, I had to vote for preseason All-American as well for AP. He would have been on my preseason All-America team had he been healthy. I think he's that good.
Yeah. Irish English asks if we've heard a timeline for Charles. I mean, nothing, it's not definitive, but what Marcus Freeman said at the start of camp was basically during the season, which is kind of the timeline that they had given all along. So I think that we're kind of thinking November-ish. Like as of right now, he's just doing some light stuff off to the side still at practice.
Yeah, I think October is the earliest, the best case scenario, sometime in October, but I think November is probably more realistic. The good news is he didn't say he could be out for the season and the postseason. That he thinks it's going to be a return in season is a good sign.
Yep. All right. Well, we will wrap up the first hour with that. A lot of great stuff from Eric Hansen from blueandgold.com. And give that pitch one more time before we wrap up this hour.
Yeah, if you'd like to come take a test drive with us at blueandgold.com, it's $1 for 7 days. And then after that, you can jump on board for more than $1 or try to sign up under a different email, I guess. I don't know. But we'd love to have you give us a try. We're rolling 6 deep this year with our coverage team.
That's true. Like the blue and gold guys are multiplying at this point.
We are almost as many blue and gold guys as I have grandkids. I'm up to 8 in that department. So with the twins this summer.
Keeps you occupied either way. All right. Great stuff as always, Eric. I will see you soon and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Eric Hansen.
Thanks, everybody.
blueandgold.com. That's the first hour. Vince and Bobby will be in with me for some rapid fire in the second hour. We've got a lot more Notre Dame football to talk when we do that. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We are here. It is hour 2 of Budweiser's weekday sports beat, and that can mean only one thing. It's rapid fire time. How are you, Vince?
I'm doing fantastic. Sean Stires, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Doing great. Did you do anything spectacular for your anniversary yesterday?
We went out to dinner, which was nice because it was sans children. So anytime that
Always
occurs,
nice.
that's always a good thing.
Yep.
And you know what? We honestly just walked around. After dinner and everything, we went to a place in downtown South Bend. Just walked around downtown, and just kind of took in, what was going on. It was a fairly nice evening, and it was kind of nice just to kind of walk around, kind of walk the calories off of what we just, what just took place at the restaurant. And but it's restaurant week in South Bend. So
Yes.
they got all those special menus and stuff, and so a lot of great deals down there.
We did our dinner last Saturday because we've got Jesse and his fiance coming into town, and my daughter's birthday is today, so we have
Right, yep.
much more priority. So
yes.
I was working a lot. So we did last night. We went to this place called Cascade.
Okay.
Relatively new. I think it's been around for a year. I think it was the start of restaurant week. So we got a nice deal. They were very nice. Great service and the
great.
Yeah.
If you live in the area, some great deals in downtown South Bend. They have kind of special menus, and kind of some of it is 2 for 1, or two meals for the price of one. Kind of a deal, and just some really, really good deal. We went to a place called Cinco 5. I think.
Yeah. We've been there before. Good place.
Yeah, and it was very, like I said, the prices were good. Food was excellent.
Isn't the sign doesn't it say Cinco and then the number?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's called Cinco 5 or if it's
5 literally.
Cinco, I don't know.
Cinco. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it was really, really good. It was really, really good. And the Morris, I think, had something going on. So there's a lot of action downtown, but it was nice to just kind of walk around and kind of take in downtown South Bend. I don't get downtown very often. All right. It was kind of nice. Yeah.
Good stuff. Joe wants to know where Jesse is. He says he thought he was in town. He's driving here literally right now from Cleveland. They are driving here right now.
Of course he's listening.
Dogs and all. He may be. The last time he was driving here, he was listening and kind of chiming in on the chat and all that kind of stuff. So who knows? So he'll be in town. He'll actually be in town for the next week or so. So yeah. All right, fill in the blank on this first question. We are a little bit more than a week into training camp, and it's blank that we don't know Notre Dame starting quarterback yet.
Not overly surprising, I guess, is the best way to put it, but I would say that it's also a very good thing. That means it's a real competition. Both guys are pushing each other, and right now it's too close to call as far as we're concerned. And so I'm okay with it. I think I said before, right around our anniversary is when we're going to find out. Obviously, I was wrong. That's okay. That means it's a real neck and neck situation. So that just makes the team better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think maybe people are a little antsy about this because the last few camps, it's like it's been announced, really early in camp. But this is much more a true quarterback competition than any of the last 3. I would say, or even probably 4 going back to Jack Cohn for that matter. So
I wouldn't say that there was real competition.
No,
even though they say there was real competition, this is a legit competition. Both guys have strengths and weaknesses. Neither one of them has the quote unquote experience factor. Right. And so I really do think that it is both guys pushing each other. So I never really believed that there was much of a competition prior to this one. I still think Carr's ahead, but that doesn't mean it's over. You know what I mean? It's still a race, and the race will end when we're told that it's over.
And I think that there are a lot of situations, again, because it's only been a little bit more than a week of camp, so I didn't expect it to be announced this early.
I was hopeful.
But, I think maybe we all were to get to get it over with, and I think it's nothing but a good sign that these two are pushing each other. And, again, they're there are game situations they need to put them in. They, you know, like, so to speak, need to hold their feet to the fire and see how they respond to some different things. You know, like when we looked at that, when they had that practice video that they released earlier this week from the stadium practice, there was obviously a pick six in there. You know, like it's not like day one was the only day any, you know, either of the quarterbacks threw an interception or whatever. It's still, how are you going to bounce back from that? How do you respond both mentally and physically? Because the pressure, you know, I would say most of the pressure in practice is on those two guys.
Oh, 100%. And we know from the videos and whatnot that they're going to, you know, they're practicing on the grass at the in the practice facility, and then they're also going into the stadium. And so they're bouncing around. They're putting these guys in different situations. And, you know, there's other position battles going on as well outside of the quarterback. And the quarterback is most high profile. And look, I was hoping it was going to be over right now for 100% selfish reasons, because I'm just sick of fielding those questions about, you know, one versus the other and, you know, all of these different things. But at the end of the day, I think it's probably best that they haven't made an announcement yet, because that means it's a real competition and one guy hasn't really pulled away from another one, which means one guy isn't playing poorly yet. So it's good for the team. It's good for the team. And to be honest with you, I'm interested to see when they decide that they're going to let us in on, you know, the whole situation, John. They don't have to.
No, I know. I mean, that kind of becomes the next question. Like, will they actually tell us? Will they make it public, or will this all stay behind closed doors until Miami? It feels like Marcus Freeman is not necessarily, like, doesn't. I said, again, Eric and I talked a little bit about it in the first hour. Like, Marcus Freeman is the polar opposite of Jim Harbaugh, right? Like, he's not hiding depth charts, and he's not releasing Harbaugh not releasing a roster and all this different stuff. That's not Marcus Freeman. He's always been pretty much an open book. But there is some benefit to your team in not saying anything, not releasing a depth chart until you're out there on Sunday, August 31st, right before the game is getting ready to kick off. There's some benefit for you and your team. I don't think that it's probably going to go that way. I think we're scheduled to have a press conference with Marcus Freeman, not this weekend, but next weekend. I wouldn't be shocked if, when we go into that press conference, Marcus Freeman starts off the press conference by announcing, here's the starting quarterback. I wouldn't be shocked. Not saying that's going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know if you heard what I was saying.
I knew what direction you were headed. The 17th?
I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus Freeman starts off the press conference with whoever the starter is going to be.
That was my exact thought, because while you were talking, I was looking up our schedule for when we're going to be there, and we don't even get an opportunity to talk to Marcus Freeman until then. Yeah. And so that's kind of the first chance, I guess, that we're going to get a chance for him to tell us what is going on with the quarterback battle and other position battles as well. I can just see it now. He's going to come up to the podium, and it's almost going to be like a throwaway. He's like, oh, you know, by the way, yeah, so-and-so is going to be the starter here, and we're just going to go and get ready for Miami. Any questions?
Yeah. Wouldn't be shocked by that at all. I could completely see that scenario playing out.
Me too.
Okay, well, one of these guys is not going to be the starting quarterback, and this has become a recurring question. Seen it on the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge within the last 24 hours as well. Do you think the loser of the quarterback battle will transfer?
I would love it to be 2005 and
there's no transfer portal.
Correct. Guys aren't around to be leaving. I mean, people still left back then, right? But it was definitely not the norm. Look, both of these guys are uber talented, and whoever doesn't start is looking at least 2 years of sitting behind whoever the other guy is. I just don't see them both sticking around. Look, we already saw one of the three because, 4 months ago, this was a battle in the spring, and the guy that was in third place now has a different color helmet on, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of these guys is going to end up jumping in the portal probably at some point, depending on who it is. Look, if Kenny wins the job, maybe CJ sticks around to get his degree and then jumps in the portal. If it's the other way around, CJ Carr gets the win. Kenny has a decent chance, I think, to get his degree because this is his junior year, his true junior year. He may have a chance to get his degree by the end of, December or even into spring. So, but now I just don't see a guy like that sticking around. I just don't. Too much talent.
Yeah.
It stinks, but yes.
It's just unrealistic to think that whoever loses this quarterback derby is going to stick around. Now, I think some people think that, like, whoever the loser is, it's like, okay, I'm ejecting right now, like before the season starts. I don't see that playing out. I mean, because again, like, there's a lot of football to be played. And, odds are over the course of a season, both guys are going to see the field in some, way, shape, or form. That is likely to happen. And there's no benefit in either of them leaving before, the end of the regular season when the transfer portal actually opens, because they've both had a redshirt year at this point. So they're not going to gain anything. We were talking about the other day, there's no more COVID this and, like extra years and all that kind of stuff. We're back to the old, you've got 5 years to play 4 seasons in the NCAA as of now. So again, they've each had their red shirt. So there's no benefit to whoever doesn't win the quarterback competition to, sit out this regular season and try to preserve a year of eligibility, because it's a year that doesn't exist. And it's just, the odds are, because of what you said, these guys both have multiple years of eligibility. And, so whoever the starter is also most likely going to be back for next year. So why would whoever loses, just willingly sit behind that guy for another year when there is a transfer portal and he could go someplace else and play? So I think it's highly likely that the loser of the quarterback battle ends up transferring. But again, I don't think that happens until the end of the season.
100%. And we don't know when the transfer portal is going to be, whether it's going to be December, whether it's going to be in the spring, the early spring, late, how many there's going to be. I mean, it's amazing how this goes year to year. But I foresee both of them finishing out the football season for sure. Because you're right, there's no benefit. There's no benefit to leaving right now outside of hurt feelings, and I just don't see either one of these guys taking that path, because that just reeks of, just not a team guy, and all of those things.
I think that would be completely uncharacteristic of either one of these guys.
100% agree. So that's why I don't see it happening like immediately. It's not going to be a throwaway of, hey, Kenny Minchey won the job, and CJ Carr has left campus. Like, I don't see, or vice versa, however you want to say it, don't see that happening.
Completely agree. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Andy Staples told Dan Patrick that he would be willing to take a pie in the face if Notre Dame doesn't go undefeated this season.
Shocking. That is not the kind of thing I expect to hear from a national media source when talking about Notre Dame. I did not see that one coming. As I was reading that question this afternoon when you sent it over to me, I was like, pie in the face? Okay, so he's going to say something stupid like, if they don't win the national championship, or, something ridiculous. But he's like, undefeated? I know Notre Dame's taken some slack for their schedule, but there's not many teams out there that have a harder 1-2 punch right at the front. So
breaking in a new quarterback either way.
Yeah, and going on the road to Miami, especially after what happened the last time they were in Miami, just from a hostile environment and all of those different kinds of things. I was a little surprised. Andy Staples apparently is a Subway alum that I wasn't unaware of.
You don't typically hear national media types, that follow the sport closely, going that all in on a Notre Dame team this early in the season. It almost scares you a little bit, like to
Yeah.
hear. And I think a lot of it, obviously, some of it has to do with the fact that they did get to the national championship game last year and the resolve that they showed in a lot of different ways,
Sure.
both in that game and leading up to that game. There's a lot of buy-in on Marcus Freeman, though, I think, as well. And like Feinbaum was talking a couple of weeks ago when he was taking his shots at James Franklin, like, look at how the semifinal played out. Look at how the Georgia game played out. Close, tight games. But at the end of the day, in both cases against good teams, Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame found ways to win very close games. And it just feels like a lot of people, like that sticks with a lot of people, and like people who know what they're talking about. And I think it obviously should stick with a lot of people. I'm just so surprised that this early on, like national guys, and he's not alone. Staples is not alone. National guys are that all in on the Fighting Irish right now.
Just wild. I mean, and I've seen a lot of positive things about Notre Dame and things of that nature. But to say undefeated regular season, I mean, look, is it possible? Sean, let me ask you this. If you look at Notre Dame's schedule right now, right, are you predicting Notre Dame to lose any of those games? Like one game, Notre Dame versus the opponent, are you predicting Notre Dame to lose any of those games?
No.
Me neither.
Not right now.
But do I think they're going to go undefeated? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like that's different.
Just look at last year.
Right, exactly.
Great season, but like Eric was talking in the first hour about Iowa State people being mad at him last year because he had Notre Dame ranked so far ahead of Iowa State, and I'm sure a lot of the clamor that he was hearing had to do with the fact that Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois, and that's what anyone who wants to say anything negative, like one, falling back on Northern Illinois, but two, they're going to say, who is going to be this year's Northern Illinois? Sure. Is there going to be a team that sneaks up on Notre Dame again, and Notre Dame drops an inexplicable game that they shouldn't have otherwise lost? I think that'll be the question that'll follow Notre Dame, especially if they get past those first two games with a couple of wins.
Apparently, we got to load up on the pies in the studio.
What kind of pie would you take? Like, if you're taking pies to the face, what kind of pie? I'm just going with my old standard cherry pie, baby.
Ooh.
Cherry pie to the face.
It's interesting because it's gonna stain, man. So you gotta make sure you're wearing some clothes you don't care about.
Yeah,
you're gonna take.
Don't go blueberry. Like, don't go blueberry face, because that like you talk about stain. You'll walk out of there with purple face if you do that.
which could be a little extra. I would go with probably like one of them cream pies, like a banana cream pie or a chocolate cream pie.
Comes off easy.
Yeah, exactly right. Still tastes good, but I don't know. Maybe I'd go that route. You don't want to go with like a pumpkin or something like that. It's too hard. You break a nose or something,
Seriously.
You have something with some give.
That's true. Like, if it's going to be pumpkin, it's going to have like a lot of Cool Whip.
Right.
So
exactly. I'm thinking bodily injury here, Sean.
Yes. Got to protect the face. Got to protect the assets.
Yeah, that's right. Says two guys that are on radio.
Exactly. All right, last break of the show, and then we will return to wrap up rapid fire. More Notre Dame topics. Harry Douglas on ESPN listed top 5 college football traditions. He's got Notre Dame on the list. Are they high enough, though? We'll talk about that when we wrap up rapid fire in Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down the show, Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Got about 10 minutes left here for some more rapid-fire questions, along with the one and only Vince DeDario. I'm Sean Stires. Hope you're having a great day, getting ready for another beautiful summer weekend as we count closer and closer to the beginning of the Notre Dame football season. Harry Douglas from ESPN made a list of the top 5 college football traditions. He has Notre Dame players touching the "Play Like a Champion Today" sign coming out of the locker room at number 5 on the list. It's like, okay, well, that's, it's got Notre Dame up there. Sounds good. Ohio State dotting the I on the field is number 4. Clemson's Hill and Howard Rock, number 3. Wisconsin's jump around between the third and the fourth quarters is number 2. And then Lee Corso's headgear picks on ESPN's College Game Day, number 1. Vince, I ask you, is Notre Dame being disrespected again with Harry Douglas's ranking?
I saw this, and I originally, the way you just asked the question verbally to me is very much how I read it. It was like, oh, okay, Notre Dame's number 5. Let's see who the other 4 that got in above Notre Dame are, right? And I started reading, and I was like, well, that one shouldn't be higher. That one shouldn't be higher. Look, the only one that legitimately should be higher, in my opinion, and this actually tastes very odd coming out of my mouth, is the dotting of the I for Ohio State. That's a cool tradition.
It is a cool thing.
Okay, like if you wanted to make that case, fine. The jump around thing, nope. Sorry.
What is that? And it's like, what, a 5-year-old? I don't know how long they've been doing that.
It's not that long, though.
That song, when I worked at a bar in Lawrence, Kansas, Big Daddy's in Lawrence, Kansas, since since closed. But this was frickin' 1992.
Right.
I was working at like House of Pain every Friday and Saturday night with the shrill. And that song is 30 plus years old. That thing has been around. I don't know if Wisconsin's been doing it for 30 years.
Way.
I don't think so. This has no place on this list.
No.
It's a cool little thing. This has no place on this list, though.
I kind of thought the same thing about the Clemson one. It was running down a hill. Like, I mean, look, from an outsider standpoint, they rub a rock and then they run down a hill. Like, okay, Notre Dame, all they're doing is tapping a sign. Okay, I get it. So if you want to put those two together, then fine. I don't know what this makes me, Sean. Whenever I see Clemson entering the stadium, I always think somebody's going to get hurt. Like,
I always think so too. Like, I'm surprised no one's bit it coming down that hill.
Seriously, like serious injury, like somebody pop a knee, something coming down there, whether it's even a coach getting hurt coming down that thing. Like, that looks steep. Now, I've never seen it in person. Maybe it's not as perilous as it looks, on TV, but I don't know. That's not one I would have my players doing. That's akin to riding a dirt bike.
I've got 2 that I think need to be. I would bump Wisconsin. I would bump the Rock, the whole Clemson. I can't, I was a little surprised, like the Lee Corso. It is a pretty cool tradition. He's been doing it for a long time.
It is. It seems so. It's like, okay, before I don't want to jump on what you're doing, but
it's okay.
It's corny that's the number one thing because it's not associated with a specific school.
Exactly.
And so it feels out of place on this list. But it is a college football tradition that has been going on for, 30 plus years. And people are diehard wanting to know what that is going to be. So
you think they'll get Saban to
not a
do the headgear? I mean, McAfee is the natural successor. That would be.
I think he gets like a new tattoo every day with like whoever he thinks the winner's going to be, or I don't know, something. It'll be something corny. But yeah, I get it. It just feels like it doesn't belong on the list. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not trying to clown anybody. It's not school specific.
Yeah. Cool tradition. I agree. It's the only one of these that's not school specific. So Sly Fox says Sandman at Virginia Tech better than Jump Around, like in terms of overall atmosphere. I think you're probably right about that. This is one that I have on my list. Ant VR, the Florida State Chief Osceola riding out on Renegade the horse with the spear and throwing the spear down at midfield. That's one of the coolest traditions to me, that they still do that. And, like, they've been doing that forever,
long time.
Yeah. They've been doing that for a long time. I think that's a pretty cool tradition they've got. Sly Fox, another good one. Boomer Schooner when it flips over. The Boomer Schooner thing when they come out, that's always been a cool thing. And, like at Colorado, I don't know if they still do the Buffalo.
They do.
Do they do the Buffalo?
I think so.
It's pretty cool.
If I remember correctly, watching that Dion documentary, that they kind of followed the team and whatnot, he got to meet the Buffalo, and then they showed it running out on the field. So I think that's better than something. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, my other one, much newer, but I think this is one of the coolest things that they do in college football. I bet you know what I'm going to talk about. Yeah, you just waved your hand. Iowa, with the players waving to the kids in the children's hospital. That's one of the coolest things ever that they have done. And that deserves to be, like, kick out Wisconsin in the jump around, and you put the Iowa players waving to the children's hospital kids.
And I know the hospital thing is new. It's newer. It's probably within the last decade. But how does that not, like, rip your heart out every single time?
Oh, I know.
In a great way.
And like having been in some of those children's hospital with my daughter, years ago, like, I can tell you, like, she went to Peyton Manning Children's Hospital all the time, and she got to meet Peyton Manning once, and it's still like, like, that has stuck with her. She didn't care anything about the Indianapolis Colts. She became a Colts fan when Peyton was with the Denver Broncos. She was a Broncos fan. Like, it's like, hey, Bailey, Iris, I can still. And Notre Dame men's basketball actually came to see her once down there. Mike Bray and the crew
awesome.
Rolled through once. But it means a lot to those kids. Just little things like that means a ton.
Yeah, I think that I would absolutely agree that belongs up there. Another one that I did think of the Florida State one.
I should say, I'll go ahead and mention it. Marcus Freeman, I don't want to say when they do it, but Marcus Freeman and some players, I know he and Sam Hartman did it a couple years ago, going like the Ronald McDonald House and, here at Memorial Beacon downtown. They have started a thing where they go do some of that stuff as well.
Which is awesome. Because we spent time in the Ronald McDonald House as well when the twins were born.
Yeah.
They were premature. And so, I mean, it's an awesome service to just take one more thing off the plate of the families. And so anything in that regard, I'm a huge fan of, obviously. As far as traditions are concerned, I thought of the Florida State one. So I think that's a really good one. Another one that I don't know that people think about, I love for the Army-Navy game when they walk out, they all walk out, the
long gray line and all that
stuff. And they walk out on the field and then up into the stands, like that kind of a thing. Like, that's a college football tradition.
Good one.
Really
good one.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've got time to get into this whole next question. I don't know if we've got like a, let me do this one real quick. Fill in the blank. After making his preseason NFL debut Thursday night, Riley Leonard's future looks blank.
Solid. I'll say solid. He made some mistakes. He made some rookie mistakes. It's his first time taking snaps. But I think he looked solid. He didn't look any worse than the other two guys that are competing for the starting position. You know what I mean? I don't think they're looking to put him out on waivers at this point. I think he looks solid.
I don't think that he is the quarterback of right now, but I think he's got a really bright future. I think that Riley Leonard is going to end up being to the Colts what they thought Anthony Richardson was going to be when they drafted him in the first round. That's the way I think that it's going to work. Richardson has shown like the guy can't stay healthy. Right. And even beyond that, he's just been so inconsistent. Like, Leonard did some really good things last night. Again, what that means this year, as long as he's on the roster, I think he could be their guy by next year at some point. Maybe not even on, like opening day next year, but some point next year, I think he could end up being the guy down there.
And he's the price is right as far as, being a 6th-round draft pick, I think is what he ended up being. And he just got to work on some stuff. He had like 4 or 5 batted balls. Okay, got to work on that. There's stuff he has to obviously work on. Still dynamic when he runs the football, Sean, and there's the place for that in the NFL.
That's right. Made some plays with his legs and his arm last night. All right, we will wrap it up with that for Vince DeDario. Good to see you. Quickest 40 minutes in radio and web. right here. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you next week. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.